Imagine waking up in the United States where Abraham Lincoln never guided us through the most defining crisis in our history. No stirring speeches, no steady leadership, no unifying vision to hold a fractured nation together. Today, we step into an altered 1861 where Lincoln, newly elected but suddenly absent, never becomes a leader history remembers. Maybe he resigns due to sudden illness. Maybe political chaos blocks his inauguration. Whatever the cause, a power vacuum forms at the exact moment the country stands on the edge of collapse. And in that silence, a different America begins to emerge. So let's ask the question few ever dare to imagine. What would the Civil War look like without Lincoln's steady hand? And what kind of nation would we be living in today? This is the alternate timeline of the president who never led. To understand the shock of this divergence, we need to ground ourselves in the real 1861. Tensions between free and slave states had grown for decades, fueled by economic rivalry, moral conflict, and political stalemate. The country was split almost perfectly down the middle in culture, economy, and vision for the future. Lincoln's actual election triggered secession, but his leadership also brought critical calm. He opposed the expansion of slavery, believed in union above all else, and refused to recognize secession as legitimate. Historically, his cabinet choices, his communication with border states, and his strategic patience helped prevent even broader fragmentation. He wasn't universally loved, but he was a stabilizing force during the most fragile moment in American history. Without him, the United States stands at a crossroads, one where the presidency could tilt the nation toward accelerated conflict, deeper division, or even dissolution. Here's where history flips. In this timeline, Abraham Lincoln falls severely ill weeks before inauguration and withdraws, leaving Congress scrambling. With no clear successor, the presidency defaults to an emergency transitional government, an untested mechanism never meant for long-term leadership. Southern states, interpreting the chaos as proof that Washington cannot govern, accelerate their secession efforts. Border states hesitate, unsure who speaks for the Union. And the federal government, lacking Lincoln's calming presence and clear messaging, responds slowly and inconsistently. Instead of a unified plan, you get disconnected voices, competing priorities, and a government unable to speak with authority. This isn't just a political crisis. It's a leadership void at the worst possible moment. In the absence of Lincoln's firm stance, the nation enters a conflict with uncertainty, not resolve. Foreign powers notice instantly. Britain and France, already watching closely, doubt the Union's stability. International newspapers portray the U.S. as a collapsing experiment, weakened by internal fractures and lacking direction. Investors pull out American bonds, fearing default. Trade networks slow. Southern diplomats, sensing opportunity, push aggressively for recognition. And without Lincoln's diplomatic pressure, European leaders see less risk in engaging with the Confederacy. The global narrative shifts. The United States is no longer the confident young republic. It's a troubled federation lacking clear leadership. Nations worldwide quietly adjust their strategies, treating North America as unpredictable territory rather than a rising power. This shift matters because global perception can shape outcomes. And in this alternate 1861, confidence in the Union evaporates almost overnight. Inside the U.S., the effects are immediate and messy. Without strong executive leadership, northern states begin forming their own committees to coordinate defense and supply lines. Border states, Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, waver more dramatically than in real history, unsure which side offers long-term stability. Political factions in Washington argue over strategy, causing delays in everything from troop organization to economic planning. Citizens feel the uncertainty. Newspapers are flooded with contradictory reports, speculation, and rumors. Some communities prepare for conflict. Others assume compromise is still possible. Instead of Lincoln's unifying appeals, Americans hear a confusing mix of voices and agendas. For the first time, everyday people begin to question whether the United States, as they know it, can survive the crisis intact. A leaderless government behaves differently. Congress expands its authority, passing emergency measures that concentrate power within legislative committees rather than the presidency. States gain more autonomy, setting their own wartime policies. This weakens federal control and creates a patchwork of laws across the country. Economic measures like tariffs and wartime taxation become harder to coordinate, leading to inconsistent revenue streams and slower mobilization. The absence of Lincoln's emphasis on national unity reshapes political norms. Parties fracture into smaller issue-based factions. Even after the conflict subsides, Americans debate whether the presidency should regain the powers it lost. The constitutional balance shifts, not toward authoritarianism, but toward fragmentation. Fast forward to our present day. Without Lincoln's wartime leadership setting the foundation for a strong, centralized union, the United States grows into a looser federation. It's still a major power, but less cohesive and more regionally divided. Federal authority is weaker. States hold more autonomy, and national identity is softer around the edges. Internationally, America remains influential but not dominant. Instead of serving as the world's primary stabilizing force, it becomes one of several large regional players. The ripple effects show up everywhere. Trade, diplomacy, technology, and even space exploration all develop with less centralized momentum. It's recognizable, but different in every direction. Culturally, this America never fully experiences the post-war national identity shift that defined our real history. Without Lincoln's rhetoric, unity, perseverance, shared purpose, the country develops a more regional culture. Local traditions are stronger. National holidays look different. Symbols like the flag evolve with subtle variations between states. Americans identify more with their state and region than with a unified nation. This doesn't mean hostility, just less cohesion. A country where the idea of American identity feels more like a mosaic than a single portrait. Picture yourself in this alternate 2024. You walk into a classroom where students learn slightly different histories depending on their state. News networks focus more heavily on regional issues. Businesses operate across the country, but state laws vary wildly, affecting everything from transportation to education funding. People still travel freely, but the sense of being part of one large national story feels softer, less defined. Life is stable, but the idea of America carries a different meaning, shaped by a century and a half of weakened federal leadership. So, what would America look like if Lincoln never led the Civil War? A nation still standing, still influential, but far more divided in structure, identity, and global role. History can turn on a single moment, and this one changed everything. If you enjoyed this journey through an alternate 1861, make sure to subscribe, and tell us which timeline you want to explore next.